Hey there, welcome to the Jobs for Women podcast, where we empower and uplift women to succeed and thrive in their professional life whilst looking after their well-being. In this podcast, we'll be discussing the issues and challenges faced by women in the workplace, with particular focus on gender equality. We believe that every woman deserves the opportunity to excel in her career, regardless of her gender, and we're committed to helping women break through the barriers that hold them back. Join us every week as we hear from experts, share stories, and give advice. We've got an incredible community of women who support and encourage each other, and we're so happy that you are here. Let's break down the gender barriers and create a more equitable and inclusive workplace for all. So, welcome to another episode of the Jobs for Women podcast. I'm really excited to welcome this week's guest. We have Paula Fry, who is Global Head of Fixed Income and FX Trading Liquidity at Bloomberg. Welcome to the podcast, Paula.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. We did a little pre-poddy chat, didn't we? And it was very enlightening. Your experience is incredible. So I think the listeners and viewers are just going to be fascinated. I want to delve straight in. And I just said this off camera, didn't I? Your career today is one of those like, oh my God, how the hell did she do this? I just want to read a little bit out on, because I know that you've won Excellence in Leadership Award, and you're just sort of making waves for women in finance. So you've worked in the financial markets for 30 years. You began your career as an FX trader at Goldman Sachs. And then you pivoted to FX sales, working at different banks, and the only woman on the trading desk, which I want to get into. Talk to me about that. How did you get into it and why?
Well, do you know, it's funny because when I was a youngster, I grew up in Wigan, in Lancashire, and I actually, I left school at 16. I was a travel agent. I used to work in Thomas Cook on a Saturday when I was 14, stamping brochures and whatnot, and I loved it. And they offered me a job when I was 16, and I was like, I'm off. Like, I didn't want to do A levels. I'd had enough. And like getting a job in the mid 80s, it was quite hard. It was very recession hit times. So I wanted to get out and work. So actually, it's funny how I actually ended up in investment banking was at Goldman Sachs. I worked in a travel agent. I was booking travel, and then I met my husband on holiday when I was 17, and I moved down here with Thomas Cook. So they let me transfer down south, and me and my then boyfriend were, living in Kent. And I decided, I said to him, we got married in the early 90s, and I was like 22. So that was like normal. And now if like, it would be like, sorry, you're a child bride, but then it was normal. So I got married at 22, and I said to my husband on holiday, we got married in St. Lucia, and I said to him, when I get back, I'm going to go and work in London because you can earn more money. And I got a transfer up to Thomas Cook in the city, but they had they called them, and they still kind of do, I think, people have them, but they're called travel implants. So you go and you book all the business travel for that business, whatever it is. And this was an investment bank. I didn't know what an investment bank was. I didn't even know what Goldman Sachs, never heard of them. And they were a very niche investment bank then, probably about 1,000 people based in London. There was, they had the head office in New York, which was obviously bigger, and a bit of a presence in Asia. And I started booking travel, business travel, for all these really aggressive traders and investment bankers. And it was really tough. But I used to go up and down to the trading floor all day, delivering tickets and money, travel money, and chit-chatting to people. I got to know people. And I used to deal with all the assistants on the floor that used to book. Their job was to book travel and get lunch and run around after these very important men, and I was like, do you know what? I could do that. And they earned then double what I earned in Thomas Cook. And I was like, my aim was like, I can do that. I can get that job. And I kind of wheedled my way in, and I got a job on the foreign exchange trading desk as the assistant. So I used to work for about, I had a good, like, probably 40, 50 blokes, all blokes that I worked for. And I would get their lunch, I'd run around, answer the phones, get lunch, run around, booking their travel, running up to Ferragamo to go and buy a scarf for their wife, because they'd forgotten it was their birthday. It was this sort of stuff, all like really mind bending things. And I could do it standing on my head. But I used to be on the trading floor at 7, and I used to finish at 7. So I used to do a 12-hour day, and it was knackering, but I loved it. And it was like proper, it was early 90s, so it's proper shouty trading floor, and I did it for 6 months. And my boss at the time, I kept sort of saying to him, can I do something else? Can I book trades, or can I learn how to do this sort of stuff? They offered me a junior trader's job.
Wow.
So that's how I got into trading. Like, I didn't, I didn't know what a trader did, or I didn't even know. I mean, probably I probably spent my first probably 6 months in that job going to the toilet a lot.
Do you know what I'm hearing you say though from all of that? Like, that happens to people that show that passion, that drive, like you wanted it, you had a vision, you wanted to earn more money.
And it's purely monetary, actually. It wasn't, I mean, I never thought, oh, I want to work in a bank, or I want to be a trader,
Yeah.
or, I mean, I didn't, the concept of trading and how that makes money for a bank, and what that didn't even occur to me as something that could be actually quite exciting and adrenaline pumping. But no one had ever talked to me of careers at that when I was at school in Wigan. It was like, do you want to be a nurse, or a secretary, or even like, it was, I remember once saying, oh, I really like animals, when I was about 13. I'd love to be a vet. And then they were like, well, you've got to go to school till whatever. And I was a bit like, oh no, sod that, I'm not, I don't want to, I want to be out doing.
Yeah, this is what's coming up with the work we're doing at Jobs for Women. It's like the careers people don't have that corporate, view of the world. And it's kind of like you go down this route and it's all very linear, but there are so many ways. And this is what we're trying to do, like open, especially the younger women we work with, open their eyes to the possibilities. That's why speaking to people like you, I want to inspire them to think outside the box and look at what's out there. Just going back to that trading floor, when you were doing your 12-hour shifts, was it the misogynistic, typical sexism back then? Was it really overt?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't quite, I mean, Goldman, to be fair, wasn't quite Wolf of Wall Street, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, a lot more. I mean, it was early 90s, so it was, and generally then it was kind of thought, well, you only trade until you're about 30 or early 30s, because then you're burnt out. That was like the thing, and obviously there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs, I mean, I didn't ever see anything like that directly, certainly never on a trading floor, but there was a lot of that going on in the city, huge amounts,
Wow.
and people kind of, it was very, you just rolled out of that kind of yuppie, or you still, I guess, were a little bit, but when you think about it, when I started at GS, like, we didn't have email.
It's so crazy, isn't it? It's like with my kids
I
now.
remember talking to, but I talked to one of my team about this like not long ago, and they were like, what do you mean there was no email? But how did you tell each other stuff? I was like, oh, I said, and I went, see this writing, like, get this a paper. You're like, you read something, and you'd go, like, one of your jobs as a junior would be to go around in the morning and give all the market commentary out that used to come on a fax. Wow. And you photocopy it, and then you would go around and you would give it out, and then you'd have that on your desk all day, that bit of commentary. And we used to do things like speak to each other. That's quite novel. Or you'd have like we'd have things called hoot boxes. So you would, you'd speak over the hoot, so you would be able to address lots of people. So people sat down in the morning and had a morning call, like, and everyone, all different parts of the business around the trading floor would give a commentary about, oh well, we've got either I don't know, the CPI numbers out today, or the Bank of England are going to talk about raising rates, or maybe the, actually it wouldn't have even been, I guess, the ECB then back then, but So there was lots of that type of it was a bit more hands on, whereas now obviously you get your morning wrap you get in an email,
Yeah.
you need to read. There isn't that. There was a lot more, and I think I was very I mean, I know you make your own luck for a certain extent, but to your point of, I worked really hard, and I wouldn't have said I necessarily wanted to be a trader, but when it was offered to me, I was like, why would I not?
Yeah, what an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then talk to us about the leadership award and what leadership means to you, because this is coming up loads, like in our survey and our themes that we're pulling out. It's like, well, I don't see a woman at the top. There's no one that looks like me. It's all men above, glass ceiling. It's like, this is a huge piece. And obviously we know that women at the top make companies more money, no brainer. And also they make companies more innovative, more diverse, more dynamic. What does it mean to you, like winning that award? And can you talk us through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was myself and one of my colleagues, my work wife, Kat.
I love that.
Who I adore, and we do a lot of work together. She works in a kind of a different department to me, but we work together. We have to work together. It's very important. And we got voted for by not only our staff but our clients, which was amazing. So it meant a lot. It meant an awful lot, actually, to be recognised in that way. And it was a bit of a surprise as well. Never won anything like that before, but it just gives you a little bit of a recognition. And I've had terrible imposter syndrome, throughout my career, and certainly, I spent 15 years at in investment bank, as a trader, doing an actually good job, obviously, because otherwise I would have. They're not shy at getting rid of you if you don't make money, or you're not a good employee. But I constantly always had this feeling that somebody was going to tap me on the shoulder every single day and say, you need to go, like, how did you get this job? That sort of thing. I always felt like that, always. And I did get let go in 2008 in the crisis. And it was also then like the little imposter syndrome went, told you you weren't good enough. But I'd done it for 15 years. My time was right to move on. So it wasn't until kind of that, I guess, that, my leadership journey's been very long, to be fair. I've run my own company for a little bit. So that's what my first step to leadership was, I guess. But I've always been the type of person that kind of, I lead by example. I've sometimes led without being the manager, because it's kind of my personality. So whether that's, trying to push people or help develop people that are my peer group, because I'm sort of thinking, well, they're really great or they're great. I've always kind of done that, even when I was, when I was in investment banking and I didn't have many women around. And every time a new woman started, I was like, right, get in my crew,
Yeah.
So I was always kind of trying to scoop people up. But the award last year was kind of like was a nice recognition to, like, oh, actually, no, I think I can do this. People like working for me.
Yeah, I love that. How did you deal with that imposter syndrome back in the day?
Well, I still have it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it doesn't go away. It's just almost like it becomes a bit of your pal. You've just got to accept that it's part of you, and it's always going to come. And it comes up at times when I really could do without it. But it also helps you. It also, having that little voice of, can you really do this? Just keeps you on your A game a little bit, so you don't get complacent about stuff. So I listen to it. If it sort of comes and it's, whittling in my ear, I sort of let it wash over me, accept it, and okay, yeah, no, I hear you, but I'm not listening to you. And then sometimes I think, oh yeah, no, actually, no, have I prepared for that enough? Do I know that well enough?
Yeah, so you almost use it to your advantage. Like,
yeah, I think also, actually, what everyone's got it. I think men have got it as well, right? But they definitely hide it a lot more than women do. I think women pay probably far too much attention to it. I think if you get up, maybe people like, I don't know, Elon Musk has not got it, right? you know. But I think in general, Trump, there'd be lots of people that have probably not don't listen and don't have that ear, think they're wonderful, but actually it puts you in check, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
actually, just need to and I'm not good at everything. I know I'm not, that's important. It's like, that's all part of being a good leader, is like, okay, what are my strengths? I know what my strengths are.
Yeah. Well, you're so grounded as well. And that's why I think you would make a great leader, because you're so personable and real. It's like, there's no, I don't know, there's no pretense, there's no facade. It's like, this is what you get. And I love the way you said, come to me, when the women arrive, it's like, come to me. So before we get
Well, I definitely used to do D&I before D&I was a thing. It was just community building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And that's what it is, isn't it? So we're obviously going to chat about the documentary you did with Davina McCall, but just before we dive into women's health, because we could talk for hours on that, what advice would you give to someone listening that wants to get into finance or wants to be a trader, that maybe has imposter syndrome, that doesn't know what to do, that's got a rubbish careers advice if they're that young, or if they're thinking of doing like a career transition? Have you got any top advice that you'd give them?
So I think for youngsters, I think what, particularly when we're talking about girls here, because I think guys are a lot more, certainly when I talk to young men who want to maybe work in finance, they're consuming so much information, they're very gung-ho, and kind of that trader mentality of like shouting. It's not quite like that anymore, but women sort of think, oh, it's going to be a really aggressive environment. One, it's not like that anymore. By the way, I love that about it. I love the shouting and the screaming. It was great fun. I'm just gutted you can't do it anymore. But it's to think about, look, university is one way, and that's where you need to make sure you're looking at doing the right kind of subjects. And it doesn't necessarily have to be politics and business per se, but we definitely don't have enough women in finance that do kind of the STEM subjects, and like maybe come in and do like things like engineering. Women are really good computer programmers, by the way, but they just, again, they think about it differently, and we don't have enough across everywhere, and we see it. I was on a call with about 50 engineers the other day who were in management. There's 2 women. 2.
Wow.
So, I am still, when I do my kind of stuff, like, I was at a client thing a few weeks ago, and there was 12, I think 10 of us around the table. I was the only woman.
It doesn't surprise me though.
I know. So look, the thing is the advice is like, university is one way, apprenticeships are another way. Lots of banks and tech companies now do that. So if you do your A levels, you do well, you can do that at 18, learn on the job, get some experience, and you get kind of a degree. You can also study on the side. Those are awesome. I think we've almost gone full circle where, back when I started, we did take people without degrees, but there was no apprenticeship program. You just learn on the job. Then we went, the whole finance industry went very heavy, kind of those Ivy League type unis and certain types of grades and all that sort of. You do need to work hard. There's no doubt about that. But again, now there's a lot more thought around hiring people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and there's like that richness that brings, because you really don't want to work anywhere where everyone's a bloody same.
Yeah,
so
100%.
From when you're looking at sort of DEI, that sort of inclusion piece, and like just making sure actually, like, you want diversity, you want different opinions. You don't want everyone that's wearing, I don't know, a Ralph Lauren polo shirt and matching chinos, and went to some, like, I don't know, played rugby and went, and I'm sorry if I'm describing anyone that's watching, but we need those people, but we need a bit of everything.
And I love that we've gone full circle, because you know, my kids, the thought of them going to uni, God knows how much that will be. Do you know what I mean? I love that it's like, you know, not everyone has the opportunity to go to uni, and companies are missing out on these amazing, incredible, talented, hardworking people. So I love that it's gone full
And
circle.
it's about hard work, and it's, you know, I had some work experiences in my office a few weeks ago, and you know, the advice to them was, you know, to be hungry, and you know, think about, you don't know at 16 what you want to do. You might not know at 18. I think my daughter, when she left uni when she was 22, she still wasn't quite sure what she was going to do, you know. And so not everyone knows instinctively what you want to do. But also the important thing, I think everyone, you know, and I say this to my kids, is when I was young, it was thought that you know, you got a job or a profession, you did it for the rest of your life till you died.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the thing now. You can have many career switches. I have done career switches. I have been a travel agent. I did that from the age of 16 to the age of 24. I was a trader. I did that, you know, until I was nearly 40. I did my own business. I had a fashion business. I worked in a broker's. I worked in a couple of startups in between. I worked in another bank in sales, and that now I work in a tech firm. So, you know, how many careers have I had even, you know, and it's okay. Like, because, okay, look, you don't want to change direction every year, but don't worry that if I start off doing this, this is what I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life. That's not right. And you can learn different skills. And, you know, one thing I learned when I did leave banking and I went to do my own business, which was totally not banking, I learned so much about myself when I did that, and what I can do, and how I can bring that back into the finance environment or the tech environment for me. All the other things I learned that I've again used on my leadership journey, to be fair.
Yeah, that is such great advice. Just that last bit as well. It's like everything we do, as long as we work hard, and I love the way you use the word hungry with those work experience people. If you work hard at anything, every single thing you do comes back, doesn't it? You can use
Yeah.
everything. And that's great advice for our younger listeners, because it's like you don't have to have all the answers now. And career transitions can actually be more beneficial, can't they, in the future?
I mean, I've one thing I've never sort of when the doors opened, I've just gone with it. I've never sort of said no to things. I've maybe thought about them, but in general, the doors opened and I've gone through. And again, that's the other bit of advice I would say is, like, never be scared. Always think, well, what's the worst that could happen, right? And if no one's gonna, you know, if your legs are not going to drop off, or you're going to die, or going to lose your house, or anything like that, what's going to happen? It doesn't work out. All right, it's fine. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's not like, it's okay to make mistakes, and that's part of life as well. Like, you know, you start off doing this, oh, I don't really like it. You know, what I would say to people as well is, you know, don't do it in a week and go, oh, I don't really like it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when I first started at GS, but in the travel department, I hated it with a passion and it was actually, my husband said to me, you either need to shut up moaning and get on with it, or leave, because you're driving me crazy. And I was like, actually, no, I want to see if I can do this. And after 6 months, I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I got really into it. And the same when I started trading, you know, I said to you, I spent a lot of time in the toilet. I was literally like, oh my God, I can't do this job. But actually, I ended up really good at that job and I loved it. So again, you know, sometimes there are times when, you know, you've got to push through the difficult bits of jobs. I think you come out there and go, actually, I can smash that. I'm really good at it. But there is you know, people are nervous, and sometimes people are like, oh no, I can't do it. And I do with my kids as well. You know, sometimes my kids have been like, oh no, I can't do it. Yeah, you can. Just keep going, you know, and then you might do it for a year and go, actually, no, I really hate it. And there's no point being miserable.
Yeah. Great advice.
But sometimes you do, you know, get rid of that sense of entitlement, you know.
Interesting. Love it. I'm going to do that with my kids when they don't want to tidy their bedrooms and stuff. But
I used to teach
just
my
do it.
kids it's all about consequence.
Uh,
You've got like, what is the consequence of you either not doing something or doing something? That was
yeah,
one of the big lessons I used to teach my kids. When
yeah,
they were trying to get me to, I don't know, go to the shops at 11 o'clock at night because they'd forgotten that they needed to take some cooking ingredients, and I'd be like, sorry, you get
yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. And just that's just such great advice. I've been in that situation, like at jobs when I was younger, not even 20s, and being like, I don't like this. And yeah, having it like ringing my mum and dad and stuff, and them just like, you got to stick it out. So that's really good advice for even anyone in early career. So let's talk menopause and women's health. I know we've been chatting. I always say I could just talk to you for ages. You're so easy to chat to. But you were in a very popular documentary, Davina McCall's documentary, Sex, Mind and the Menopause.
Yeah.
And when we did our little pre-poddy chat, it was enlightening. You should be the face of just talking about this subject, because I feel like you just break down the barriers and it's kind of like, this is what it is. How did you end up in the documentary?
So it was actually through work in a way, in the sense the long-ish answer is I'd had a really bad perimenopause experience, and I wanted to pay that forward to the women coming up behind me. So I started talking about it a lot at work, and I was running at the time, as a side hustle, the women's community at work, which is huge. We have a massive women's community at Bloomberg. It's 15 plus 100 plus women, and men, actually. It's men and women. And the pandemic did do, I think, is make it really easy to grab loads of people on Zooms, and a lot of our events we tend to do in person, or had been. So suddenly we'd got this, maybe more time on our hands, and the ease of getting these kind of Zoom things going. So we did a few events. I did it a lot internal first, and then I started to get a bit brave, and I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about this in the whole city. So we did a couple of them, and it was after one of those that a lady came to talk to me from one of the ladies in media at work, and said, oh, I know Kate Muir. And I was like, and I don't know who Kate Muir is. And Kate was the producer of the first documentary that Davina did, which was in so I did 22, didn't I? Sorry, what year is it? Yes, I did not at 22. She did one out in 21. So Kate did that. And this lady at work said, oh, do you want an introduction to Kate? I'm sure she'd love to talk to you. And I was like, absolutely. Like, again, don't know, why would I say no to that? I'm like, absolutely. I don't know where this is going to take me. So Kate and I met for coffee. We had a chat on the phone first, then we met for coffee, then I took her for lunch, and we really, really hit it off. And I said to her, when are you going to do another one? She got commissioned by Channel 4 to do another one. And I said, can you highlight women in not just financial services or the city, by the way, but just in profession, like professional women, whether that be doctors, nurses, teachers, women in finance, lawyers, because like if I'm going through it, and I think I'm, I had early onset dementia, and I'm struggling with my job, what else is going on? So she bless her, she was like, well, I really want you to do it if I do that. And that's how it kind of ended up, I guess. Like I had to get approval through work just to sort of make the program. And I didn't meet Davina actually until the day we filmed. But she and I hit it off straight away, and we kind of we'd had sort of a similar journey through menopause, through perimenopause. Both very same age, I think, when we first started off, and what worked for us had worked the same, and we had a lot of the same opinions and things like that. So that's how it started. And I mean, I think today, oh my word, it's something like 6 million views or something like that. So it's amazing.
Oh, I love it. And talk us through early onset dementia. I know we talked again in off camera. You've experienced, I mean, I know everyone has different experiences of menopause. And when I interviewed Helen Tomlinson, the government's menopause advisor, she said it's really important to have this like allyship piece, that we're all different, that some women don't have many symptoms and some women really, really suffer. So talk us through what when you talk about early onset dementia, what was that like?
Just so I got really bad memory loss, and it was like it almost feels like the way you can describe it is, me sort of like chatting to you and looking at that, which is a hand cream, by the way, and then but not being able to tell you that it's a hand cream, so you can't quite get the words. It'd be like, well, that stuff, you put it on your hands are dry, it's so I started losing words, and I anticipated the loss of them. So I'd be chatting away doing a pitch to a client, and I'd be thinking I need to say something, and then I'd be almost how can I describe it? Like trying to grab the word, but I couldn't reach it. I could sort of see it, but I couldn't articulate what that was. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know what am I trying to say? And what I used to do to try and cover up, I used to pause a lot and look serious and like frown and be like, right, let me just think about that. Yeah. Leave that one with me. I did that all the bloody time. And then I started to forget names. I definitely would ask my daughter the same thing a zillion times, like, oh, what are you doing Friday night? Be like, for God's sake, I told you, like, you're doing this, we're doing that. So my kids noticed it, and I'd be like, yeah. And I just thought, oh, I'm busy, and I'd not long actually started my job at Bloomberg. It was 2015, so I was 45, and I had a huge amount to learn, and it was just mind-blowing, very overwhelming. So coupled with, it's overwhelming if you didn't have perimenopause, but throwing that into the mix made my job, I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I found it really, really tricky. And then so I definitely thought maybe the memory loss was, could I have early onset dementia? I didn't want to talk to my husband about it. And I got a bit of anxiety as well. And you throw that into the mix, you can understand why women get diagnosed with depression.
Yeah, and also you can understand why women are leaving their jobs.
Well, the easiest thing for me to do at that time, I'll be honest, would have been to go, do you know what? I'm not good at this enough for this. And I did think that. I kept thinking, do you know what? I'm not smart enough for this. I'm not smart enough. It's too much to learn. It's too much to remember. How am I I can't figure it all out. I just don't have the brain capacity. That's what I kept thinking. I was like, oh, I'm just too old to have the brain capacity. This is a young person's job. And it's just where, your roller coaster hormones are just a massive effect in, your cognitive abilities to remember or even to articulate anything. You just felt very dead. And I felt the biggest thing, and I remember saying this, I don't think they used it actually in the program, but I used to say to my husband for about a year, I used to say to him, I feel like I try to see through cotton wool, and I can't see, and it no matter how many times I blink, there's like a layer of like cloud, or that's the only way I could describe it. It was like cotton wool strands on the inside of my eye. So every time I looked out, didn't matter how much I blinked, I couldn't clear this fog, and it was brain fog. It was very, very, and I remember that feeling so well, because I could describe it to him, and he was a bit like, oh yeah, you're mad. Like, I remember him just dismissing me a little bit over it. And I just said to him, I wake up in the morning and I can't clear my eyes.
And was that like was it a kind of a gradual thing at perimenopause, that the symptoms?
I think it was gradual. Yeah. I think it crept up on me for about 3 years, actually, when I think about it. And then kind of like rolling that, kind of snowball down a hill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it started off quite small. Well, I say small, started off with like hideous like periods and really, really heavy and very painful. And I just was like, oh, I remember my mum going through heavy periods. Yeah, it's just part of getting older. So I just poke up with it. And yet I could have gone and got them sorted out, but I never did, until eventually actually one of my friends said to me, oh, do you know, I had that, and I got a Mirena coil, and the Mirena coil changed my life really from when I was 45. That was my first kind of dip, I guess, into HRT, because you get some progesterone, and that sorted my periods out. Didn't change my moods or anything, but it definitely sorted out the need for me to wear black a lot.
And in the documentary, there's a quote which I can totally resonate with, about being in a room full of men and then, can I check the chair before I leave? That is like, I feel like so many women have been there.
Oh, do you know? And it's funny because I think it was Kate. I think Kate Moore told me. Yeah, it was Kate, that after watching the documentary, somebody had gone to her, and it was a lady, not in my industry or anything like that, that said, oh my God, like, the fact that Paula talked about that, I've been through that, and it made me, it really resonated. Like, I just thought it was just me that was, but it's the embarrassment of like thinking, oh my word. And also, men don't have this, you stand up, you're having a heavy period. I can't use, I'm allergic to tampons. So I'd have like pillows on, and I'd stand up, and of course you just feel like you feel like you've had a baby, like the insides of you've dropped. And obviously it's, I know I'm being quite graphic, but that feeling when you're having a heavy period is not very nice, and you sort of stand up, and I'd be like, ooh, trying to keep my composure and shake some hands with some men around a boardroom table, where I'm thinking, oh my good God, like, so that's why I ended up, black was my friend for a while, actually.
I love your honesty in talking about that. I mean, growing up, on my wedding speech, my dad even said I could be a gynecologist, because my mum and I have had such bad periods, and it's like the banter of the family, that it's kind of like, and now I'm the same with my kids. So I love that. When I read that in one of the write-ups, I was like, we need to be talking about this, because men need to understand that when you've stood up in that meeting, obviously they don't know in that meeting what's happening, but that women are going through it, because this is affecting everything. Gender pay gap, women in leadership, women are fighting with these insane symptoms, and then still trying to have the face on, close the pitch, shake the hands. Like, it's crazy.
No, and all because we're the ones that have to go through that, and so actually what I will say is, having them conversations about of what happens or what can happen during perimenopause, and being more open about that whole thing, has opened up lots of conversations actually at work, about periods as well for the younger women, because we do have a very broad demographic in the city, and there's women in their early 20s. They don't necessarily want to talk about perimenopause, despite the fact that I want to educate them. Some of them are, thinking, oh, that's way off. But, some of them are having super heavy periods now, like in the 20s. My daughter sometimes has had that. And so actually it's very topical to speak to them about it, and period health. And, we had something actually a little while ago at work, where we got groups of women together, and then to actually talk about what happens, why women can sometimes, like, it affects their mood, it can affect their actually ability to do their job. If you're feeling like grim, and again, I've urged younger women that have come to me saying, oh, I'm having a really bad period or whatever, like, well, actually go and get it investigated, or these are what I use, like, different tablets you can take and stuff for the pain. Like, I think sometimes what we do is we think, oh, well, this is just part of it, and we're just going to crack on. Where actually, and I did that, and it was like, when I went and got myself sorted out, I thought, oh my God, I don't have to poke up with this.
Yeah.
But I think we've come from generations of women have just been going through it for years. Oh, this is what we have bad periods, and we just, some of us do and some of us don't.
Yeah, and you just got to crack on.
Yeah, but actually you need to sort of work out, you need to look like, actually, can I sort myself out? And a lot of the times you can.
Yeah. I know I've kept you for so long, but before we wrap up, I just want you to just share how you how specifically you manage your symptoms. What did you do? Because I know it's like the whole HRT thing is controversial, you know, what we've been told in the past. How did you help yourself?
So look, you know, when I saw my doctor, she'd kind of said to me about HRT, and I said, "Oh no, I'm going to white knuckle it." HRT can cause breast cancer, which again, you know, going back to that 2001 report, I think it was that, which might, you know, I was 31 then. I remember my mum was on HRT at 51, and she suddenly come off it, and then like white knuckled the rest of her journey, which was awful, right? And she kept saying to me, "Oh, you can't take HRT, it gives you breast cancer." And that's all she'd ever said to me, like maybe once, twice. So that stayed in my head. And when I started to do, thank God for the internet, my own investigations and stuff, and talk to my doctor, I was very lucky. I was like, actually, you know what? No, bring it on. And oh my word, I think when my symptoms were kind of at their peak, 46, 47, and I got estrogen. I mean, mind blowing, you know, the difference. And you suddenly feel like, you know, 25 again. You know, it's ridiculous. It gives you your energy back. Now, it's not for everybody, but you know, if somebody you know, said to me like, you can live, you know, a healthy life, you feel great, you know, there is such a tiny percentage that you could get breast cancer, but do you know what? That increases with age anyway. And you know, I have regular mammograms, I check myself. You actually got more chance of getting breast cancer if you you know, drink a lot, smoke a lot, or you're obese. The only thing I would say is like estrogen, progesterone, which you need, and the other thing is testosterone, makes a big difference. That's one thing, but perimenopause and this time of your life, you need to look at the holistic way of really, you know, your health. So it's exercise. Everyone hates it, me included. You need to do it. It's moving your body, you know, lose it, you know, use it or lose it, the classic. You've got to move, keeping your brain busy, you know, not giving up your job, getting some help, and you know, unless you really hate it, but you know, for me, it's what keeps me young and energized, and I think is keeping my brain going. Your sleep, super important. Not drinking too much, not burning the candle. You know, it's none of it is rocket science, right? It is holistic. So you know, if you take HRT, it will 100% help with your symptoms, but it's not, you know, it's not the silver bullet. Like if you're you know, drinking a bottle of wine every night and you don't exercise and you eat processed food, my guess is you're going to still feel a bit shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's such great advice. I could talk to, I know I always say it, but I just feel like you've been there and done it, and I think you could help so many women.
Well,
So
you come out the other end. That's the great thing, right? You do come out the other end, and it's a process, but you know, it's not, as I say, it's not for everybody, and some people can't take it. But I think the more we talk and the more we work out what helps everybody, you know, but the lifestyle stuff is really important, and I think that's sometimes not emphasized enough. I mean, Davina talks about it a lot as well. She really looks after herself. You know, it's moving. I mean, I don't, you know, Davina's amazing, and you know, she works out a lot, but even just doing like once a week, or walking, you know, walking every day, that type of stuff, really good for this.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. If people want to reach out and connect with you, where's the best to find you?
I'm all
LinkedIn.
over LinkedIn. LinkedIn's I think I'm the only Paula Fry on there. I'm a bit of an Instagrammer. I don't mind. I Instagram as well. So I've got my Instagram name is City Fash Gal. So my definite, you know, I work in finance, so I can pay to buy lots of like nice dresses.
And I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can connect. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Very welcome.
I really hope you enjoyed that interview with Paula. She is an absolute legend. I love how honest, transparent, and real she is, and how it's kind of like there's no bullshit, you know. It's like, this is what I did to get to where I am, and then this is what I've experienced along the way. And I love that raw authenticity, and I could have literally talked to her all day. And like I said, I think she should be shouting from the rooftops about this subject area. And if you haven't watched the documentary with Davina McCall, you should be able to get that on catch up somewhere. So that's it for another week of the Jobs for Women podcast. As always, it's been a pleasure. I love having you here. Do me a favor and send this podcast to someone you think might be interested. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. And if you haven't already, please head over and join the Jobs for Women membership community.jobsforwomen.co.uk/join. And I will see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.